your sickness is within you and the cure is also within you. And you might think that you are a small entity, but within you is the entire universe.
When did AI hit you, and how did it become the career choice for you?
I saw that a lot of companies had invested a lot of money on adopting AI, but no one was really putting anything in production.
How AI is just going to get more and more infused in our daily lives.
It's pretty creepy. It knows you better than you do yourself.
How do you manage that life between deen and dunya?
If your dunya has your values, then you're not stuck balancing the deen and the dunya.
Give me a guilty food pleasure. Any ayah, any hadith, obviously from Imma. What is one that's kind of stuck with you, resonated with you in your personal life?
So this is Imam Ali's hadith that actually guided me through my PhD, and it's also on my dissertation. It was his basically guidance or advice to his son, and it said that
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for tuning in to Up Close and Shia podcast. Today's episode has a couple of first-time milestones. I get a chance to speak to the first woman on the show, and we'll be taking our show on the road. Today, I get a chance to speak to a CEO of a Silicon Valley technology startup, Nazneen Rajani. Sister Nazneen is the CEO of Collinear AI, a VC-backed AI startup enabling enterprises to deploy frontier AI models that are safe, reliable, and brand aligned. So come with me as we take the show on the road and head to Silicon Valley. All right, and with that, Sister Nazneen, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for accepting my invite and coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just start with a quick bio. If you can just tell me a little bit about your family background and how long have you been in the Bay Area?
Yes, for sure. So I'm originally from Mumbai, India, born and raised over there. I came to the US for my grad school, actually about like 12, 13 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been a while. I've been in the Bay Area for since 2019, so about 7 years. The reason we moved here, so I got married while I was still doing my grad school back at UT Austin in computer science, and we moved here because I got my first job out of college at Salesforce, and so that got me to the Bay Area. And I was there for 2.5 years at Salesforce, and then joined this startup, Hugging Face, which is basically focused on AI. And I did it at a time when I just had my second child,
Okay.
Hassan, and so it was a difficult decision, but an even more difficult decision was to quit even that startup and start my own. So it's been a roller coaster so far since I've moved to the US.
Okay, no, and we're definitely, I appreciate that intro, and we're going to get into your professional journey as well. So, I just want to say I'm super excited about today's discussion, right? Because obviously, with your profession and your expertise around artificial intelligence and AI, it's a part of my daily personal and professional life. I use it every single day. Actually, can't live without it for productivity reasons, for sure. And with that, sort of coming to the question, the speed and scale at which AI is becoming so common and mainstream now. First, maybe like I said, you were talking about your professional journey. Maybe talk about as you were going through that journey from Salesforce to Hugging Face and focused on artificial intelligence. Tell me a little bit about when did AI hit you? This is going to be my thing. And how did it become, the career choice for you?
So it was actually way back when I was in school back in India. My father was very instrumental in that. So just as background, my father is also an engineer, and
Okay.
he did electrical engineering in Mumbai, and he worked at different companies and was focused on network security, and was also an entrepreneur himself. So he motivated me quite a bit. And in fact, I remember when I was in either seventh or eighth grade, that he used to read a lot of these books which it could tell you about the journey of, say, how Microsoft came into existence, And he was so inspired and used to tell me that, you know what, I think artificial intelligence is the future. And this is like way more like about 20 years ago, right?
Wow.
And so
Wow.
I did not understand a lot at the time, but when I was in my undergrad in India, there was like, we used to have something called electives, which are like these optional courses that you can take. And some of the courses that were offered were under this umbrella of machine learning or artificial intelligence. And so I ended up taking two courses on AI. One was like intro to AI, and then the other one was on neural networks. And coincidentally, I actually took both of those in the very same semester, which was, it made my life really hectic. But then
Sure.
the good thing about that is that I came out of it like really inspired and motivated. It taught me about how you can teach machines to essentially think or understand how humans would learn, right? And so one thing was basically the thing with artificial intelligence or machine learning is that you're teaching these neural networks or these AI models to recognize patterns and from a lot of data, and then use that whatever they learned during the learning phase and apply it to completely new situations. So that was like very interesting. And the project that I did in that class was building a tic-tac-toe game.
Okay.
And so you would have a neural network, kind of play tic-tac-toe with a human, and it used to like learn from the human's moves what is the next move it has to make, right?
Wow. Okay.
So those things, like although they're like small, like back then, it
Sure. Sure.
kind of very like motivational. So that was like very early days, foundational. And then when I moved to the US, obviously, like here it was, the pace was much faster and moving very quickly as well. So I remember last decade, which is like 2012, 2013, right when I started my grad school, there was this kind of like almost like the way we see this in language model space. A similar type of change was happening in the computer vision space. So what that is like with images and videos.
Sure.
And the reason for that was this data set that was put publicly out there called ImageNet. And all it was basically web scraped images from all over the internet. So like
Wow.
if you remember Imgur and all these like
Sure.
different like
Yep. 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 I do.
image
Yeah.
sites, all like these were like basically Stanford students who scraped the entire internet and put like a whole collection of millions of images and put it out there, and they started a competition for anyone to train a model, and then they would keep a held out set, and then when they upload the model, they would just run it, evaluate it on the held out set and see how well it performs. And the surprising thing was people found that you didn't have to do anything interesting to make the model work. It was just data, like a lot of data. So everything that was there in the 1990s was actually working surprisingly well in the 2012 2013 phase because of all the data that was available back then. So that was very motivating. Although, like I wasn't working in the vision space because I was more interested in language.
Okay.
So like our natural language, right? Like how humans talk, because I feel that's more nuanced. It has like English grammar is so different from say Urdu grammar or Arabic grammar, and it has a lot of its own nuances. And that is what motivated me. So my thesis in my grad school was actually focused on how do you like build these machines to understand human language. And back then it wasn't like something that was a center of attention or focus for a lot of people. It was like very academic. People used to like do write their dissertation and thesis and then go out there in the world and like still do like very basic traditional machine learning. So it was interesting. But I can go ahead unless you want me to.
Yeah, no, I mean, so there's so many golden nuggets there, and I think I'm gonna probably double click into each of them. But maybe I'm gonna double click into one of your statements, especially around your father and his entrepreneurial spirit. So related to that, as you were going through your journey, obviously from undergrad to grad, and being part of a lot of the studies and being done, when did the sort of entrepreneurial spirit come in? So obviously there's definitely some family history there, and that's beautiful. But maybe if you can just shed some light, and as you're going through that journey, like, I think maybe doing my own thing might be the path for me. How did that come about? And almost like the motivation and confidence to actually do it?
Yeah, so to be honest, it was an extremely difficult
Sure.
decision. And it's been a year and a half since I took that decision, and I'm still not sure if it was the right decision. But I can tell you what motivated me. So, as I was telling you earlier, that I was working at this startup called Hugging Face, and to give you like a one line about what Hugging Face is, it's like the open equivalent of OpenAI. So OpenAI, even though its name is OpenAI, all the AI or the model that they release is actually closed weights. You can only access it via API or through a chat interface. And what Hugging Face was doing is that it would actually open source or put the model out there for anyone to look at it, run it themselves. Actually, there's also this angle of interpretability, like what went into it, what is the recipe for making that model. And the reason, like, it was basically democratizing this process, and that was really inspirational to me. And also the reason why I went from Salesforce to this startup, because at Salesforce I was working with Hugging Face models all the time, because they put it out there. Any researcher or anyone in the world for that matter could use those and build something on top of it, right? And so, at Hugging Face, when I was there, I was there actually 1 year before ChatGPT and 1 year after,
Okay.
which was, as you know, the Chat GPT was an inflection point
Yes,
for
absolutely.
a lot of like changes that we're seeing in the AI landscape. So before ChatGPT at Hugging Face, it was mostly like doing traditional machine learning. Like obviously we were working with language models, but nothing at the scale that happened after ChatGPT. So
Sure.
and like when ChatGPT dropped, my boss there, who was one of the co-founders of Hugging Face, is like, hey, you need to drop everything and we need to like open source ChatGPT. And I was like, okay, interesting. Where do we get started? And then we started looking at all these papers that OpenAI had worked on. And obviously, because they are actually like closed AI, there's not much out there
Sure.
to
Yeah.
build that. And just going through that process was like an eye opener. It made me realize that, imagine like me, or like anyone who's like good at AI research or has like worked in AI research, is finding it so difficult to sort of recreate even something close to a Chat GPT. Imagine how hard it would be for like enterprise companies or companies that don't have an AI team, right? And so that was one of the things that motivated me. The other one was that even 1 year after ChatGPT, I saw that a lot of companies had invested a lot of money on adopting AI, but no one was really putting anything in production. What that means is that they had issues with the hallucination problem. They had issues with AI safety, like, is this aligned to my brand? We saw issues like, the McDonald's bot would say that if you ask it, like, what are the healthy options? It would say, sorry, we don't serve anything healthy. That's clearly not on brand, right? Like, you wouldn't
Correct.
want
Yeah.
a bot that says that about your brand. So those were like, like reasons that were for why I should like go and start a company. But on the flip side, I was also a woman, and not just a woman, a
Absolutely.
Muslim woman,
Yep.
which comes with its own challenges. And so I had to think very deeply about, hey, is this the right thing? I also, like, back then Hassan was just 2 years old, so it was a difficult decision. But Alhamdulillah, I've been like, so far it's been a lot of learning, and it has definitely, that has its ups and downs, but it has like clearly like shown me, like given me this idea of like, it's so important to think clearly and have that discipline in life
Jazakallah.
that comes with like being an entrepreneur. So sorry, I know it was like a big
No, that's beautiful.
ramble.
And don't worry, I'm going to double click into that as well
Okay.
as on the later question. So maybe perhaps we should have started the conversation here. So maybe taking a step back, Ms. Nazeen, if you can, explain your company, Collinear. If you can tell us what they do in sort of a elevator pitch statement.
Right. So, my vision for Collinear AI is, how do we enable enterprises to deploy AI in production with safety, reliability, and brand alignment in mind? So that is what we are working towards. We have tools for AI safety, tools for preventing hallucination in AI outputs, and essentially aligning the output of AI to your company's brand values, or the what your enterprise stands for. So that's kind of the elevator pitch of what we do.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful, and I'm sure there's obviously a lot more in depth that you would like to go. If you were to summarize artificial intelligence and AI, there it's an ocean, right? There's a lot of things. There's LLMs, there's machine learning, there's obviously some of the common names like ChatGPT. But if you were to summarize what is AI, maybe if I was explaining it to my grandmother,
Yeah.
how would you, obviously, with all your experience and expertise, how would you summarize what is artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so I think to summarize it in very simple words, it would be something like that takes in a lot of data, identifies patterns in, say, and patterns in behaviors, in actions, in language, and then uses that learning to now make decisions, take actions, or, identify more patterns or do more classification. So that's kind of like a summary of it. But to give a concrete example and also to highlight one interesting fact on what distinguishes AI from a human is that for a human, say, for example, like, if you look at a kid learning, right? Like you teach them words, they start with words and then they like sentences and then they start, reading comes a lot later. But still, like, the amount of data, if you just like look at number of words that is needed for a child to like, start learning or start understanding the world is a lot lesser than what it would take a AI model. So just to put this in perspective, if you were to read every single day for say like 4 or 5 hours a day, and you did that for the rest of your life, then you would have probably just like read about 9 billion tokens, or like tokens are sort of like 0.75 of a word, so 75% of a word. And like for AI models, we are now like training at trillion scale, so like 15 trillion is very normal. So this
Wow.
is kind of like you can see how inefficient AI model learning is compared to human learning, where humans are able to learn on much lesser data. So that is one clear example of why like AI and humans are very different.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
God has made us amazing, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So that's. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. It was a different angle. I've never heard it from that perspective, but that's an amazing of how human essentially is the ashraful makhluqat, right? So, but yeah, no, that's amazing. So maybe I'm gonna double click into one of the things you said there, as you're saying, children, child learning language versus what it takes for AI to even try to catch up to that speed. So maybe sticking to that right there, which is for the folks that maybe haven't invested time in learning artificial intelligence and AI, and even some of the baseline stuff, right? Like product, I use it daily for productivity. Couldn't do my job without it,
Yes.
arguably now. But for the folks that maybe haven't, invested that time, what are they missing out on? And with that, maybe just a second question: what sort of prediction do you see? It's already become infused as part of daily practice, almost like I said. Some folks obviously maybe quite not there, but what would encourage folks that have not picked up or are lagging behind, and based on some of the predictions that you see of how AI is just going to get more and more infused in our daily lives?
Yes. So I would say that my prediction is that AI would like proliferate all walks of our life, right? And so just like phone or like the app store, this did not exist say 20 years ago, and but now every single person has a phone. Like it's almost like you would be surprised if someone did not have a
My
phone.
kids navigate it better than I do, but yes, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So this is, imagine like AI is going to be there in every walk of our life. It's like integrated in everything we do and any decision that we made, any action that we take. And so my recommendation would be to, if you have, just be curious, like, start by like maybe, downloading an app, like, ChatGPT has its app, so does Claude and Tropic. But then there are also like productivity apps, like you were saying. Granola is one of my favorite. So I would say that start with those, and if it like intrigues you further as to like how is this doing, like how is it able to understand me, because a lot of time now like there's personalization built into the kind of, if you start chatting with chat gpt, I would recommend you to like start playing with some of these models. Maybe first start with like apis, try to like put some input like as a document, as a pdf, and like maybe even translation. There are so many like books, like deen books that are there, which are in Arabic or Farsi, and like maybe you can even tell it to like prompt it to write this for my 5-year old, or like explain this in simpler words, and it actually does a decent job. But I think one thing I should warn you about is that although it's like I would recommend like to grab the opportunity to like use AI as a tool, we should also be mindful of the pitfalls, right? Like we shouldn't kind of rely on it too much, and you should know how to spot failures. So as clearly hallucination is still a big problem,
Sure.
and it has a biased view. It is created by a lot of folks like billionaires essentially in Silicon Valley over here, so they have infused their values into these models, and so we need to kind of be aware of the pitfalls when sometimes it says things or recommends things. You should be like sort of like have an open eye. It's like, okay, is this something that I should be following, as opposed to like blindly just taking their word for it.
Wow, no, that's a very beautiful statement, and yes, being a consumer of it on a daily basis, like I said, personal and professional. Yeah, I've started becoming more conscious of some of the responses of it. But no, that's a beautiful takeaway.
So sorry, just to like give you an example, like if
Please.
you actually ask ChatGPT who's the rightful successor after Prophet Muhammad, and you should try this probably. It
Okay.
actually says it's Imam Ali
Well,
because it has been trained on all the history books.
so that's beautiful. So that's where we can take it blindly,
We can
right?
take it blindly, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
No, that's beautiful. And actually that's a perfect maybe pivot. So, we were actually just talking offline as well as we were coming here today to record. You were taking your kids to, I believe, Quran class earlier this morning. So shifting gears to that, right? So you have a lot going on. You are running a company. You're obviously living in this environment. You're trying to set up the right culture and the environment for your kids as well. How do you manage that life between deen and dunya? Like, and almost let me maybe ask it this way: why do you still prioritize deen as part of it? How does that help you navigate your journey?
yeah, no, this is a great question. And so the way I see it is that if your dunya has your values, then you're not stuck balancing the deen and the dunya, because it almost seems like a tug of war. Instead, you could like integrate deen and dunya. Like you could
Jazakallah.
have that spirituality or the deen as that guiding force, or sort of like something that grounds you and gives you clarity. So imagine like you're like taking all these meetings, talking to customers, trying to close deals, and then you have to go pray namaz, and then you're like, oh, this is the reality. Like this is who I am, this is
Jazakallah.
where, and and this is who I'm answerable to. And so though that is like very important to keep in mind, and that gives me a lot of clarity as to like when I start like becoming very anxious or nervous about some decisions, you just realize that, hey, this is so ephemeral. Like these moments are there, but then you don't have to have it occupy your entire world or your entire brain space, right? And so that is I think that is how I view it, and I'm so glad that we have faith as an important part of our life, which not every person is privileged to have, right? And
Sure.
so to be honest, has helped me quite a bit in my journey.
So just sticking to that for a moment, right? So again, as you were mentioning, being an entrepreneur in the technology space, being a woman, living in sunny California, and related to that, so as our daughters in the future, and really just the next generation in general, and you kind of gave some nuggets there for sure. But if I just again double click into that, what advice would you give them, as they navigate their journeys? Some might be a little bit further, some might be a little bit more behind, to again integrate it, as you mentioned, right? It's not really this push and pull, but rather an integration. What are some maybe some practical advice, right, that you can provide to the next generation that helps them integrate, as you mentioned?
So one advice I could give is that don't wait to be invited. Like get yourself to the table, and bring your whole self, and also make space for others, because
Jazakallah.
your voice is important,
Jazakallah.
and it's not an outlier. I think that is super like important to like kind of always remember as we navigate this challenging times, right? We're trying to like be a faithful person while being in this kind of in the day and age that we are in.
Sure, absolutely. Um, and again, maybe just the last question of this first segment. Any advice that you can provide as well, to maybe on the professional side of it for becoming an entrepreneur, or even within your space with artificial intelligence. Any advice that you can give to the next generation on using technology as an enabler essentially to your lives. Businesses use it as an enabler to their processes.
Yeah.
How do they use it as an enabler to their life?
Yes. So my recommendation would be to like start small and see what motivates you. Does it spark your interest? And if it intrigues you further, like go kind of like go explore it like further. One thing to also remember is to like have a good support system, right? Because sometimes this journey can be very lonely, and it can be, you might feel that hey, this is great, but everyone else is like performing better than me, or is like not at the same level as me and things like that. It's very important to have a support system like friends and family who can be there to support
Exactly.
you, which is very important for even for me, right? Like
Sure.
it's just can be like you can go like be part of like it gives you clarity in some sense, right? And also like someone you can go to, and getting that outside perspective actually like enables you to move faster sometimes, which in my opinion is overall a big win.
Well, no, that's really practical. I'm taking away from that as
Yeah.
well. Well, so that's gonna wrap it up for the first segment of the show. We're gonna shift into the exciting rapid fire. Miss Nazneen hasn't been fully prepped. She's had a little bit of access to some of the questions I'm gonna ask her. But Miss Nazneen, this rapid fire is intended to be fun, rapid, candid, for our audience to just really get to understand underneath the hood of who Nazneen Rajani is.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
if you're ready, I'd like to begin with some of the first questions I have for you. Ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, so best AI tool for normal people to consume on a everyday basis.
Perplexity.
Perplexity.
Yes,
Wow.
a
Okay.
search tool. Yeah, I pretty much use it all the time instead of Google. It was Google up until end of last year, early this year, but now it's mostly Perplexity.
Perplexity. Okay,
Yeah.
actually I'll be guilty. I haven't tried that. Gemini, I feel like is great. So sorry, just my own comment there. So I'm a big ChatGPT. I've tried like Copilot, in the work environments as well, and Gemini, and some of the obviously the big name ones in ChatGPT. I think maybe ChatGPT has just learned me a little bit more better.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously over the course of the time my prompting has also become better, right? But generally speaking, personally, whenever I use ChatGPT for personal and professional, because we have enterprise licenses for ChatGPT as well, I
Right.
feel like it's learned me more and it's given me like
Yes.
answers that are like formatted to what I need. But maybe that's just because I've been using that more.
It's
And
pretty creepy. Yeah, it gets like super personal at times, and sometimes it knows you better than you do yourself. So
Okay, but perplexity. Okay.
yeah.
And I guess you kind of answered this question. So, assuming like, is that the AI model that is your go-to?
Yeah, so I would say like if it's like an app or something, it's mostly either Cursor or Granola.
Okay,
Cursor for like vibe coding, sort of building something out quickly, and Granola is for taking notes. So all my meetings, like I stopped taking notes, and Granola is really
sure.
good.
Yeah.
It will write like a follow-up email as well for me, so that is perfect.
Yes, yes, I do. We use well at work. We have the enterprise Copilot, so we use Copilot for note
Nice.
taking, and Gong as well.
Yeah, gone it.
So shifting gears to make your mind really think here, uh, give me a guilty food pleasure.
Recently, I would say it's Dubai chocolate.
The white chocolate. Yes, yes. I think a lot of people would also say that. Yes,
Yes,
including myself.
it's surprisingly good. I heard it led to like shortage of pistachios. I don't know how true is that.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
No. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
So no, that's a good one. Okay. And again, shifting gears on you to make your mind really think here. So you obviously in your position are speaking to people all over, right? All over the ranks. So as you're pitching maybe to investors or just giving a speech. You were mentioning you've been at some of the conferences, giving the speeches. What is one thing that you have to do before you get in front of an audience?
I would say like make a small dua, like Bismillah or some, like,
Okay.
just to kind of like have that groundedness, and then a deep breath, and then we go.
Well, mashallah. Okay. Yeah. Keep it nice and simple, right? Not
Yes, nice and
overthinking
simple.
it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And just the last question of the rapid fire, and I asked this question to obviously all of the guests. If you seen some of the episodes yourself, and I always preface it with this, so I'll start it again, which is any ayah, any hadith, obviously from Imma. They're all valuable. They're all beautiful. But what is one that's kind of stuck with you, resonated with you in your personal life that you could share with us? You can paraphrase.
Right, yes. So it will definitely be a paraphrase. So this is Imam Ali's hadith that actually guided me through my PhD, and it's also on my dissertation, which
Wow.
is, I think it is, if I'm right, it was his basically guidance or advice to his sons, and which said that like your sickness is within you, and the cure is also within you.
Jazakallah.
And you might
Jazakallah.
think that you are a small entity, but within you is the entire universe. And so
Subhanallah.
that was like such a, like, it was so inspirational, and it was basically like, kind of like that self reflection is so important. It's like, sometimes we get so lost in the day to day and the chaos, and like just stepping back and thinking about, like, what is our reality, and why were we made, and what kind of, what is our purpose in this world.
Jazakallah.
Just reflecting on that, like, kind of like makes all decisions so much easier, because
Sure.
as a CEO and someone operating a company, it is sometimes it becomes like, oh my god, I don't know if I made this right. And
Sure.
just doing that, and like, kind of following your instinct and gut, and like keeping this hadith in mind is like, is very helpful. So I'm very glad, alhamdulillah, for knowing that and trying to, like, kind of like do some amal on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, as I hear some of the answers to the questions I've been asking you kind of throughout the entire interview, I see that theme, right? Because you're mentioning bringing yourself to the table. Your voice is powerful. So I think, consciously, subconsciously, I think you are doing the amal against it. So inshallah, you keep you doing that. And that's going to bring our episode to a close today. Miss Nazneen, thank you so much. And inshallah, bihaqi al bayt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep showering the blessings upon you.
Ameen.
And hopefully this is the first of many conversations as I take my show on the road and come to Nazneen City and to San Francisco. But inshallah, we'll see you next time on Up Close and Shia podcast. Assalamu alaikum and khudafis.